Hey guys, I'm Alastair from Trail and Kale, and today I'm reviewing the Nike Vaporfly 3. Now this is going to be an interesting review because I have recently reviewed quite a few other super shoes which you can see just down here, including the Nike Alphafly 3, so I will give a very quick comparison with this one. Also the Cielo X1 and many other running shoes over there. Check out the channel if you want to see those other super shoe reviews as well. But for now we're going to be reviewing the Vaporfly 3, and it is a very interesting shoe. I'm not entirely sure who it's for precisely. Now I know it's a race day shoe targeted at marathon runners, but also anyone in between from 10k to marathon. This shoe is definitely for them. But what I mean is, why would you go for the Vaporfly over the Alphafly 3? And it's a very interesting question, and I've been running in them both quite a lot lately. So I'm going to share some of my insights because I'm sure a lot of you out there are having the same questions, like which one should you go for? Because on paper they look fairly similar. And there's really not all that much in it in terms of price either, about $30 I believe it is. But they are very different shoes. Okay, so I've established therefore anyone who really wants to run faster. And they are a race day shoe, but you can also use them for your training, like interval runs and maybe even tempo runs too. Before I get into my performance review and go over the things I really like about this shoe and also some that I don't really like about it, I'm going to go over the key statistics. So first off, they cost $260, which is very much in line with a super shoe like this. The HOKA Rocket X2, which I would say is probably the closest competitor to the Vaporfly 3 right now. This one costs $250, so very similarly priced. How do they fit and feel then? Well, they are medium to narrow in width. Now I have pretty average feet, quite slimline in fact. So it really does surprise me that this is actually quite a narrow shoe. There is a good bit of room in the toe box, and in general the upper doesn't feel too narrow for my foot. But anyone with wide feet are probably going to feel like this is too tight on them. And especially so on the inside. I mean, this really does confuse me a little bit. Inside here, the footbed is so narrow that you actually end up standing on the side of the shoe, the upper here. Hopefully you can see it's curved in here. So because it's so narrow, you end up standing on this part of the upper to some degree. And that does cause a few comfort issues, albeit it's much better when you're actually running because you're forced to run on your forefoot with this shoe. So I can only assume this has been modeled on very slimline feet, maybe Kenyan runners for example. Either way, it's very narrow on the bottom, so if you do have wide feet, this isn't going to be for you. And if you do have wide feet, you'll probably have better luck using the Alphafly 3. The upper is using a super breathable variant of Flyknit. Super breathable. I mean, look, put my hands in here, you'll see my fingers. There's really not a lot to it, and that's a good thing. It is also very soft on the inside, and towards the heel you've got a really nice padding around here, which feels super comfortable around your Achilles. And it puts your heel far enough away from this section of the heel counter so that it doesn't rub on the back of your heel. So I really like how that feels, very comfortable on fit. And the lacing system is strangely asymmetrical. Now I personally don't like the look of that. I know Nike's probably just trying to be quirky and do something different from the competition out there. It's also got a very asymmetrical tongue too. The outsole has got a nice waffle design, which gives you better traction than the previous Vaporfly that came before this one, the Vaporfly 2. Now I don't have any experience with those running shoes, but I know this is one of the updates to come to it. Another update is this heel section here, which, like I said, keeps your heel away from this section and stops it rubbing on it. The outsole is also thinner in the Vaporfly 3. That's this rubber compound here. You can see it's super thin. What that does is reduce the weight of the shoe overall. The shoe has a drop of 8mm from heel to toe, which by the way is the same as the Alphafly 3. And then it weighs 6.5 ounces, which is insane. In fact, this is one of the lightest racing shoes or running shoes that I reviewed here at Trail and Kale, and I've reviewed hundreds of running shoes. So super lightweight. Yes, it's lighter than the Alphafly 3 as well, and the HOKA Cielo X1 and the Rocket X2 for that matter. It's super lightweight and it feels really good. A lot of people are going to love that about this shoe. Lastly then, the midsole is using Zoom X foam, which gives you really good energy return and bounce. So I love how it feels, and it's very light in general as well compared to other foams from Nike. And there is also a carbon fiber fly plate running through the bottom of it. You can kind of see it just underneath there. Hopefully you can read that. And there's a little window to it here as well, that little black line. Now what these two do in combination is give you really good propulsion, forward propulsion, and energy return when combined. And I should hope so too. They're $260. So I always say, if you're going to buy a super shoe, don't just save them for race day. Yes, you're going to be training in a slower shoe, and when you come to race day, you'll have this super shoe, this weapon that you can just fly out of the gates with. But it's $260, so just get your money's worth out of a shoe. Use them for your speed sessions, get to know the shoe, know how they're going to feel come race day, and just have fun with them. That's a lot of money for a running shoe, so I always recommend just use them. Use them as much as you can. These foams and outsole tractions nowadays are so much more durable that you don't have to save them for race day. Well done, you've made it to my performance review. That means you've got a pretty good attention span, and I appreciate you for sticking around. So how do we actually perform on a run? Well, I said they're a lot of fun. Yes, they are a lot of fun because they're super fast and the propulsion is fantastic in the Vaporfly. But it's not all perfect. Now, Nike does say this shoe is very stable for running, and they attribute that to this kind of bump out on the midsole at the heel. But you know what? It's not a very stable shoe, and I don't really like how it feels when I'm running in terms of stability. You're going to have a very, very perfect form and footfall. So if you've got any kind of pronation, you're going to feel a little bit unstable on this shoe. And the reason for that is because it's super narrow. Just look at that. To give you an example of a shoe very similar that's actually much wider on the outsole at the heel and the forefoot for that matter, would be the Alphafly. For one, just look how much more narrow that is. Again, this has to be designed or modeled on someone with super slim feet. So I'm just really not sure who it's for, except for those very sleek elite runners that have very slimline feet. Another example is the Cielo X1. Put that next to it. Pretty clear, isn't it? Pretty clear how narrow this one is. So anyway, that does create some instability on the run. And because the Zoom X foam is nice and cushioned and propulsive, you do get a little bit of wobble if you're not careful. Like I said before, if you have no pronation issues, then you probably won't even notice this and you will just be really enjoying the ride of it. But something definitely worth noting, and if you do need a bit of extra stability underfoot, then this shoe won't be for you. I'd recommend maybe trying out the Cielo X1, the Rocket X2, two shoes from HOKA, or maybe the Nike Alphafly 3 as an alternative to this one. Putting stability aside though, it does feel really good on the run. The midsole is very cushioned. It's also very responsive, so that's really what you want in a racing shoe. You want to be able to be propelled forward and get some response and energy return from your stride. The other thing that I noticed on the shoe is just how breathable the upper is. It's a hell of a lot of fun to run in because your feet stay very well regulated in terms of temperature. But one thing I don't like about the upper is this asymmetrical lacing system. I just don't like the look of it for one. Let me know in the comments down below if that's your bag, if you kind of like the look of that, or if you're not sure about it. I don't feel like there's any kind of design benefit to doing this. It feels a bit sloppy when I'm doing up the laces, and it feels like I'm not really getting the snugness in the areas that I want it to be. Also, the tongue is asymmetrical too, so you can see it kind of slopes to the side. I don't know. I'm not sure. A little bit too quirky for me there. As you can see, the Alphafly 3 has a superb design, a bit more traditional. but it just has a better fit on the upper. By the way, they both have the same notch laces, which is this type of lace if you're not familiar. What that does is allow the laces to get a nice tight knot so that your shoes don't come undone whilst you're running, as long as you pull them nice and tight. Well, that's really it for my performance review. And now on to the question, are they worth $260? Are they worth your money? Well, personally, I wouldn't pay $260 for these racing shoes, only because they don't fit my foot as I would like them to. That's because of the lacing system in the upper, but mostly how narrow it is underfoot and the comfort or lack of comfort that brings in this section in the middle of your foot around the arch. So for some people with very slim feet, they're probably going to love this racing shoe. It is a lot of fun, it's very fast, it's the lightest racing shoe that I've come across so far. So if that really matters to you, if that's of value, then maybe they're more worth it for you. But for $30 more, I would say the Alphafly 3 is probably better value for money. It's going to fit a lot more foot shapes, it's going to be a lot more comfortable for more people, and it's a faster running shoe in my opinion. Well, thanks for watching this Nike Vaporfly 3 review. I really hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully it answered some questions that you had about this running shoe. But if you do have other questions, please just ask them in the comments down below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.